Today, I want to be reading you guys some Reddit stories while playing in my Minecraft world. Today, I'll be going into the Nether, so hopefully that goes well. You guys can listen to these stories in the background while you're doing some work or some chores, or even to fall asleep too. But yeah, let's get right into these stories. Oh, and one more thing. Sorry if I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but I am trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. So if you watch my videos every day, make sure to subscribe. But yeah, let's get into the stories. This story is titled, Am I the A-hole for letting my daughter flaunt her expensive items? I, 50 female, and my husband, 48 male, have a daughter, Danica, 21 female, who has been extremely independent her whole life. Danica began working when she was 15. Now she works part-time for a large corporation while pursuing her studies. We are extremely proud of her and how hard she has worked. We generally allow her to manage her own finances, and she insists on contributing monthly to family expenses with the money she earns. Danica occasionally likes to make pricier purchases, which I do not have any concern over, as I think they are sensible financial choices. Like last year, she decided to purchase the newest MacBook as her old laptop was on its last leg, and she wanted something reliable and long-lasting, or when she bought a Marc Jacobs bag for work and university. We recently went on a family trip with my brother and his family, who have two kids of their own, Tammy, 20 female, and Nick, 23 male. His kids and Danica aren't exactly close, but they get along fine for the most part. I know that Tammy and Nick do not have any source of income besides my brother and have not worked a day in their life. During the trip, Danica would occasionally pay for the three of them for small things like drinks or food. When we were shopping, Danica bought a few items for herself and picked up gifts she wanted to bring back to her friends. During dinner that night, my sister-in-law told my husband and me that we were spoiling Danica too much with her purchases. We explained that Danica earned her own money and every cent came from her job. Sister-in-law then proceeded to point and tell Danica that if that was the case, she shouldn't be flaunting her purchases and items in front of her cousins, who don't have a, quote, cushy little office job, and parents who spoiled her into the person she is. Danica apologized politely, saying that she didn't mean to flaunt her things, but I could tell that she was upset and embarrassed. My husband stood up and shot back, saying that Danica shouldn't have to apologize for her own hard work. I also pointed out that Danica has been financially independent since she was 15 and that we've always done our best to not spoil her. Sister-in-law then proceeded to tell us that we weren't teaching her how to manage her finances correctly and that all this money had turned her into a little brat. Danica excused herself to the bathroom and texted that she had gone back to the hotel. We had a tense back and forth for the rest of the dinner, and we came back to finding Danica crying in her hotel room. I call my brother, hoping that he is able to talk to his wife, but he explained that for the past few days, Tammy had been crying to her parents about not having what Danica had. She had been whining to her mom that she wanted the newest MacBook as well, but she refused to get it for her. Myself, Danica, and my husband have been getting calls from the rest of the family, some calling us a-holes and some who are willing to hear us out and understand where we were coming from. So, am I the a-hole? This is literally just a jealousy thing, um, because there's a difference between just being able to and purchasing um, bigger and more expensive items than flexing. And in the story, it says sometimes Danica would pay for her and her cousins, and sometimes in the meantime, while they were shopping, she would also go aside on her own and pick out some gifts for her friends. And so here she's not flexing or one upping or, being cocky. She's literally just doing what she does. It's not like this is just a regular thing, right? She has some extra expendable income and now she's just spending it. Like it's not that complicated. And like depending on what she buys, like that could or could not be a bad financial decision, but if she's living under her means and still putting aside money to invest and stuff like that, then there's no problem in just spending that little bit of expendable income you have left over. Like, yes, putting aside money to invest is incredibly important, but you don't have to like invest every single penny you make because you're not even going to see that money until you're 65. And that's not to say investing is not important. It's just balance is important. Another thing I thought I might add is I don't know if you guys caught this, but the person writing the story, is 50 years old and her daughter is 21. So even if the daughter was kind of being an a-hole and was kind of flexing and being arrogant, even then, like it's not the mom's responsibility at that point. Like the daughter is a grown woman, that should be her responsibility, and that should not be directed at the parents. But no, yeah, the in-laws are pretty stupid. I have no idea what they were thinking. Ideally, with people like that, you always have to like come at it from a stance of like, if you're jealous of someone, you always have to be like, how can I be like you? And you want to be very kind to them and you want to learn from them. You don't want to like do what they did and like basically shame her. Because if you want what she has, then ask her to teach you, and be very humble about it and be very kind about it. And so I think this is a terrible way to handle it on the in laws' end. And yeah, the mom is definitely not the a hole. Someone said, so two grown adults complain to their parents about how a third grown adult has bought with their own money. Do they not realize how pathetic that sounds? Not the a hole, your daughter has done nothing wrong. Then a person replying to that said, it's obvious whose kids are being spoiled, and it's not Danica. That is super valid. And I didn't even realize this. Like, I didn't put those dots together, but the cousins who are jealous are also adults, and they were asking their parents for the new MacBook. So, like, not only is Danica, who makes more money, a grown adult, also the other cousins are. And I think one of them is actually like a few years older than her. So it's just so weird that they're like complaining when they're entitled to nothing from their parents. Like they're not entitled to anything whatsoever, and they're fully in control of their financial situation, right? And so is Danica. So it's just like I don't know why the parents are involved in this at all. Everyone in the situation is an adult. Yeah, someone agrees with this, saying they're not even kids. They're in their 20s, as is she. I don't understand why the parents are talking about how she spends her money. This post is weird. Yeah, facts. Like, I was reading this, and for some reason, like, the way it was worded made me think that they weren't all adults, but that is the case. So, yeah, the mom's definitely not the a hole. Let's get into the next story. This story is titled, Am I the a-hole for disagreeing with my wife for inviting her friend and her family on our vacation? My wife and I have a child. We are planning on having a second child soon and thought it would be nice to book a family vacation for the three of us before the next child comes. This would likely be our last vacation for a couple years until the new baby grows up a bit. I proceeded to book the resort and flights. However, a few weeks later, my wife informed me that her friend, along with her spouse and kids, also booked a stay at the same resort for the same time we will be there, likely because my wife suggested to her friend it might be a good idea. My wife did not communicate this idea to me, likely because she expected I wouldn't agree to it. I'm feeling confused about my feelings about this. I was expecting a vacation where it would be just our family, time to enjoy our last moments as a family of three. Now I'm worried that my wife will be compromising family time to spend time with her friend. We've had a very rocky last few years filled with multiple moments where we almost separated, constant fighting, and a lack of respect and consideration. I feel very insecure about our relationship, and I'm sensitive when she takes time away from us, especially since we spend very little quality time together. Whenever we go out somewhere with her friends, she completely tunes me out and focuses her entire attention on them. Even at home, she will prioritize looking at her phone and responding to a text in the middle of a conversation with me, tuning me out. Her friend says that they intend to do their own thing while they are there, and we may share the odd dinner together. And I believe that, but I'm more concerned that my wife will be more focused on integrating our time there with her friends than just us. I will be put into a position where I have to fight for time for us. I'm conflicted because part of me is fighting to have more quality time with my wife and help us get closer and connect. But on the other hand, it seems she doesn't share the same priorities and it makes me resent her, which makes me not want to bother putting effort into reconnecting with her at all. I might as well say F it. I'll just treat this vacation as quality time with my kid and prioritize them and not put any care into what she wants to do. Am I justified in disagreeing with my wife for doing this? Part of me thinks I may be overreacting because my expectations for this vacation were completely upended without my knowledge. But on the other hand, it makes me question whether she took my feeling into account. This just really depends on a lot of things. Like, it really just requires some more communication on his end because he's expecting her to spend more time with the friends when in reality, that's kind of an unknown right now. And so, if I'm him, I would quickly clear that up with your wife so that you know, like, what intentions does she have, and also set expectations with her. Like, set an agreement as to, like, what actually happens before you overreact. This guy also mentions that he's, like, insecure in his relationship. And so, I think there's like this thing called confirmation bias, basically like where you if you look for something, you'll find it. And so if he's insecure, I think he might kind of look for reasons to think that his wife doesn't like him or doesn't want to spend time with him. I'm just assuming that, but I wonder, is that maybe the case? Is there a little bit of that there? But like at the same time, he did kind of mention as well that it sounds like the wife invited the other friends, knowing that he wouldn't like that, and didn't tell him so that he couldn't like disagree with it. Like the thing is though, like at face value, you read this story and you want to side with him and you think he's in the right, but I also know that he's biased, and I know that this is not entirely true. But for now, I don't know if I'd go as far as saying he's like the a hole here, but I would say it's too early to overreact. And all I would do is just say, hey, what are your expectations for this trip? Are you going to spend a lot of time with your friends, or do you want to spend a lot of time with me? And can we set firm expectations so that you can promise to me what it is that we're actually going to do? And I think after he has that conversation, then he can choose how he wants to react, whether that be positively or negatively. That's kind of just what I think. So I do think he's in the wrong, but like I don't think he's like the a hole. Like I just think it's too soon to say. I will kind of play the devil's advocate though, because I did say he's insecure, and I also explained why I think that influences the story, but that doesn't make the wife in the right either. It does sound like she ignores him a lot and, does all these things to kind of dismiss him and get away from him. And I think that sucks. And so, if that's true, if he's telling the truth about that, then I guess I would kind of reassess the state of his marriage because that's a big deal, right? He mentioned he has another kid on the way. I don't know, like, obviously he already has another kid on the way, but I don't know if it's a good idea to keep bringing kids into like a relationship that isn't like healthy and firm with a clear expectation towards what the future holds. And like, I'm not trying to go on like a side tangent here, but I I find it really interesting because I look at like a lot of marriages and a lot of them are bad, but they're not so bad that they'll divorce. And so I think people get stuck in this like endless loop of like, well, it's not bad enough to end it, so I'll just stay. And then they end up like doing that for the rest of their life until they die. And I think that's also super unfortunate. The one complication, though, that kind of like locks him into this is having a young child. Uh, Obviously, it's not ideal to like cause a bunch of stress and separating when that's unnecessary. But if they didn't have kids, I would say like begin to like reassess the state of the marriage because he didn't explicitly ask that, but I do think that should be something that he should consider. And yeah, I think worst case scenario, going back to the story, he did kind of mention at the end that he could potentially do this, as he just goes on the trip and spends some quality time with his child. I mean, obviously, then you can be mad at the wife if she doesn't spend time with you, but that's not like a terrible scenario. Um, it's probably good to spend time with that kid before you bring another one in and spend a lot more time focusing on the newborn. Um, so yeah, I would still go on the trip, but I would have that conversation with the wife before I choose how to react. Someone said, not the a hole, but honestly, this does not sound like a situation you should be thinking about bringing another child into. You and your wife are clearly not on the same page. She's going behind your back when she thinks you will object to things. You're insecure in the relationship, and she isn't prioritizing your relationship at all. I'm going to be real with you. You two are headed for divorce on your current path. This is a marriage on its last legs, not a healthy one. These are major, major issues. You two need to put the baby plans on hold until you work through these issues in couples counseling. If you are able to get a place where you are both prioritizing the relationship on the same page, communicating well, and focusing on your family, then start talking about kiddo number two. But divorces are hard enough. You don't need to add an infant to the mix. Yeah, that's basically exactly what I said earlier, but just the more extreme version. Um, Again, I know that his end is going to be biased, so I don't know what the wife's perspective is. So I will give the wife the benefit of the doubt just because we only heard his biased perspective. Um, but this person did say too, like, don't worry about kid number two. I don't know if I was like mistaken, but I was under the impression that they were already having the second kid. Um, but yeah, like if they haven't had the kid yet, or they're considering doing that, or they're planning to do that, I would definitely put that on hold because the marriage, if there's any like ifs there, if there's any like issues, which it sounds like there are, or like hesitation, they need to figure that out, or they need to do something else. Like they need to, you know, I don't know if like divorce immediately is the method, but this person does absolutely need to start considering other paths. I don't know. What do you guys think, though? I normally don't ask you guys to comment on the stories, but you guys should. I always love to hear the feedback. But yeah, let's get right into the next story. This story is titled, Am I the a hole for telling my sister that her lack of personal hygiene is the real reason no job will hire her and not sexism? Oh, this one sounds like it's going to be a good one. This concerns my sister Lily, who is graduating soon. Our parents taught us the importance of personal hygiene and keeping yourself presentable. But I guess Lily fell off the wagon while dorming in college because it feels like she dropped everything to do with personal hygiene since moving back home. It's easier to explain with a list of things she isn't taking care of. Hair, very oily slash greasy and always tangled from a lack of wash and brushing. Skin, also very oily and greasy from no wash. Nails, never trims so they're long and yellow from grime. Clothes, clothes themselves are nice, but she leaves them sloppy and wrinkled. Body, showers once a week tops. I'm not sensitive to smell, but my sister reeks and honestly makes me gag sometimes. Lily is upset because she says she can't get an in person job in her field and wants to give up. Our parents have tried telling her that presentability slash hygiene is as important as credentials when getting jobs, but my sister won't listen. Lily has a rocky relationship with our family, so she takes it as a personal attack rather than them trying to help. Lily is now blaming sexism and says men are just intimidated by a competent woman, and that's the sole reason why she hasn't gotten a job. If she wants to lie to herself, it's her life. Whatever. What I can't stand is her trying to make it my problem and expect validation from me. Okay, I normally don't pause reading stories in the middle, but I just had to comment on this paragraph because that was insane. So she says Lily is blaming sexism and says men are just intimidated by a competent woman. That's crazy because a lot of companies are now hiring for more racial diversity and for more gender diversity. And so that would be like the opposite of the case. Not saying it doesn't happen because it definitely still does. And I think that's wrong. But that's definitely not the case in 2025. Um, and also, she says all men are just intimidated by a competent woman. Bro, I think a competent woman would have the ability to take a shower. Like, hello? That's crazy. You can't be a competent woman and not shower. Like, that's crazy. Anyways, enough yapping. I'll get back to the story. Lily just did a bunch of interviews, but all went cold after none panned out into jobs. She was venting to me last week about how companies in this field are all boys clubs and quick to shoot down a woman they know is intellectually above them. I was basically just like, good for you. Can I please finish my session in peace now? Lily got defensive and said she's just warning me, then doubled down saying most men are selfish and I should save myself the headache now. She was saying this with my male friends on the voice call. I had enough and told Lily that her lack of personal hygiene is the real reason no job will hire her. So stop blaming others and think for 2 seconds. If you were a company owner who needs to impress investors to keep your own family afloat, would you want to be represented by someone who looks and smells like a homeless person or someone who is presentable and takes care of themselves? That's crazy. That's such a good that's such a good statement. I love that. Honestly, good on the person writing this because the sister did really deserve that because she was just generally bringing down like the entire male gender, which is like that's wrong, like regardless of gender. It's like and that's obvious. So she did deserve that, I think, 100%. And there is one more paragraph, so I'll read that for you guys now. We got into an argument, and Lily is now either giving me one word answers or not saying anything to me at all. I'll be honest that we argue a lot, but Lily normally would have gotten over it by now. Did I do the right thing giving Lola a dose of reality, or did I F up here? No, you're definitely in the right, in my opinion. Yes, it's harsh. Yes, it's blunt, but is exactly what she needs because not only is she delusional, she's also hypocritical and sexist when that's the exact thing she is against. She's saying like all men are bad or all men are this and to just avoid them before it's too late. Um, and yeah, so she deserved it because she's a combination of really bad, like a lot of different really bad things. And yeah, this is another example of like confirmation bias. If you're looking for sexism, you're going to just, you're probably going to find it and you're probably going to point to things that may or may not be actually sexist. So, like, for example, she said the company is mostly male. That doesn't really have to mean it's sexism. Obviously, I don't know what the company is. I can't see the company, but a lot of professions are, I guess, gender dominated. Um, if you want to look up like statistics for, what percentage of Alaskan fishermen are men, it's going to be majority men. And that doesn't mean it's sexist. It just means that's kind of who applies for the job and generally who wants to work for those companies. And again, I am totally speaking in generalities. So this is not like rigid or whatever, it doesn't apply to everything. I'm just saying like a lot of times like you can't always just draw conclusions like that like the sister did. And so I do think she deserved that, um, because she's being sexist, which is exactly what she's against. And she's also delusional in the fact that she doesn't think that hygiene matters enough to shower or trim her nails or like basic stuff that like every human should, implement. I mean, and obviously like it's not required, but like if you want a job, if you want, you know, good social relationships and all of these things, it's like that is just the bare minimum. And to blame it on sexism when in reality you're sexist when you just need to take a shower is crazy. So yes, it's blunt, yes, it's harsh, but sometimes being blunt or harsh is justified, and I think it was here. So the person writing this is 100% in the right. Someone said, not the a hole, but I would be concerned about why Lily has let herself go at that point. Speaking from experience, keeping up with personal hygiene was really difficult when I was struggling with depression, but I still made an effort to look presentable when I had to go out. I don't know if that's what your sister is going through, but it might be worth looking into. Yeah, 100%, because that is definitely not normal. Like I said, like that's kind of the bare minimum. And if she's not doing the bare minimum, you might have to think about why. Like, why is that happening? Um, and yeah, I think it would be really sad if your sister was struggling with that and you didn't know. So I didn't even think about this, but now that the person commenting this brings it up, I do think that's very valid. And, if this person is struggling with depression, then maybe, just maybe, that bluntness could be softened a little bit. Um, However, you do still need to give them a reality check. It's just how you phrase that might look a little bit different. But yeah, that one was definitely interesting. And that's all I got for this story. That is all I have for today, though. I know I have been telling some of you guys that I've been trying to make daily videos. I'm still trying to do that. I've been really busy with the work, so bear with me. Sorry if any of you guys were looking forward to that, but it is still something I'm trying to do. Hopefully, we can make it happen. Again, if you guys want to leave a comment, I'll try to respond to every single one of them. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.